Welcome to the debate between National Experimental High School at Central Taiwan Science Park and Tzu Chi Senior High School. The proposition for today's debate is that the Taiwan government should make public sex offenders' personal information. For the debaters, rules for timing your speech are as follows. When there are 30 seconds left, you will hear a short ring. When time is up, you will hear 2 short rings. When it's 30 seconds into the extension, you will hear a long ring. And upon hearing that, you have to stop your speech. And rules for timing your cross-examination are, when there are 30 seconds left, you will hear a short ring. When time is up, you will hear 2 short rings. And upon hearing that, you have to stop your cross-examination. Any evidence cited during the debate should have a corresponding evidence card, which may be reviewed upon request by the cross-examiner and their teammates. The card needs to be returned at the end of the constructive speech following the cross-examination. For the audience, please turn off your cell phone or turn into the vibrate mode. When the debate is still in progress, please do not chat or use flash when taking pictures. Thank you.
First affirmative constructive speech, 4 minutes.
Good afternoon. It is the affirmative position that the government should make public sex offender personal information. Before I begin by contending the harm in the status quo, the term of sex offender needs to be clarified. According to Taiwan Penal Code, sex offender is defined as someone guilty of having sexual intercourse against another person's will, or making an absent act by using violence, threats, intimidation, controls, drugs, hypnosis, or similar means. And the definition of making public will be elaborated in our plan. After being sexually assaulted, the victim often suffers from psychological and physical injury that are, needless to say, hard to be erased. The victim's rights to life, freedom, and sexual autonomy have been seriously infringed. According to statistics from Executive Yuan in 2012, 90% of the sex crimes are first offense. It can be suggested that first offense is the most important point of the sex crime. Thus, deterring the sex crime rates of the first-time sex offender will be our main goal. In order to solve the harm concerning the sex crime in the status quo, we, the affirmative, insist on making public sex offender personal information. Making public sex offender personal information will make potential sex offender think twice before they committing a sex crime. The action that will affect their whole life and be defined as a devil by the society, just for paying back the temporary impulsive or emotional drive. Without notification law, the sex offender may think of betting a chance for not being caught after a sexual assault or thinking about paying money or staying in prison for years at most. We fear that the action of offending others brings them some kind of satisfaction which drives them to think without too much to loss. It is worth a try. As a result, the prospect of sacrificing their reputation is the best way to deter a potential offender from committing a crime in the first place. And now I would like to start detailing our plan about notifying and registering sex offender personal information. Disclosing the sex offender personal information, including his or her name, home address, photo, race, age, sex, height, weight, detail of the crime, and personal features such as his or her tattoo, birthmark, hair color, etc. will help the potential victim protect themselves by knowing adjacent offenders, and help the police monitor the sexual criminals. For making the information more reliable and functional, those offenders are required to update their personal information every month to the police agency. The offender will be classified into 2 groups. Those criminals who convict sexual intercourse against another will, their information will be notified to all residents via mails, emails, and website for 10 years. Those who make absent act in public or doing act which make others feeling uncomfortable, their personal information will be notified to educational institution for 10 years. And we will make public the juvenile's personal information whose age is still under 18. In special cases, for instance, offender with mental illness or repeated sex offender, we will add chemicals castration to them. The new law will be non-retroactive, meaning that they will only be applied to a sex offender sentence after the enactment. Although we believe notification law is the best solution in status quo, there isn't a perfect plan in the world. It still needs a supplementary program like GPS monitoring to check the sex offender path and restrict the sex offender activity area. For example, they can enter educational institution, daycare center, or other organization that primarily serve children and community groups. As a result, GPS monitoring works as suppressing the recidivism rates. Thank you.
Second, negative practice, and first, affirmative. 2 minutes.
How can you, why is making public the only way to solve the problem?
Sorry? We didn't say that it's the only way. We say that it's the best way in the status quo.
So this is not the only way.
Yeah, of course.
How can you make sure making public will arise public awareness, but not making people more panic?
Yeah, of course, but I agree that sometimes we will make people panic, but of course our plan is suppressing the.
Do you have
First,
evidence to prove that by making public, the recidivism rate will get lower?
We didn't say the recidivism rates will go lower. We say that it will maintain public safety by suppressing all of the sex crime rates. All of it, not just recidivism rates.
Do you know the recidivism rate of sex offenders? Do you know the recidivism rate of sex
In
offenders?
Taiwan,
Yes. in
there is
Taiwan.
it's different all around the world.
No, I mean in Taiwan. Because you are going to make public in Taiwan.
Yeah?
So do you know the rate?
No, in terms.
No, I'm supposed to ask you a question.
So, okay.
How can you prevent first crime?
First crime.
Yes.
I just mentioned in our first constructive speech. So, just sacrificing their reputation, and also they will think twice before committing a crime.
Thank you. You said you want to make public address, but what about, don't you think by making public their address, it will cause hate crime towards the sex offenders?
Hate crimes.
Hate crimes means,
Hate crimes.
yes.
Maybe it will.
Okay. And you say, do you have evidence of chemical castration is useful?
Yes, of course.
First, negative practice. 4 minutes.
Good afternoon, honorable judges and my dear fellow debaters. First, we agree with affirmative definition of sex offenders. However, the affirmative contends that making public can decrease the number of first offenses. But our topic is that making public sex offenders' personal information. So if the sex offenders does not commit a crime, we cannot make public of their personal information. And the affirmative failed to give the recidivism rate in their speech. In our research, we found that the recidivism rate is only 3.7% in Taiwan. Now I would like to point out some facts. First, in South Korea and the US has made public. However, the affirmative failed to give the evidence to prove that this can lower the recidivism rate. Second, countries that practice compulsive registry law consider adopting making public system, but they also conclude that giving the public access to sex offenders' personal information does little help to prevent sex crimes from happening, while it may lead to violence or even hate crimes against the ex-offenders. Third, according to our research, the recidivism rate is only 3.7% from 2006 to 2011. And the majority of sex offenses are committed by someone known to the victim. Making the offender's information public does not seem to stop such unfortunate incidents from happening. My partner will elaborate the issue later in the second speech. Several problems will arise if the affirmative plan is carried out. First, sex offenders are often forced to move by the community and end up homeless. On the other hand, when it comes to finding jobs, sex offenders have more difficulties to find one. A study in Wisconsin state stated that 90% of ex-sex offenders lost their jobs or place to live. Studies in 2005 and 2006 also show the same result. What's more, in different countries such as South Africa and the US, once the ex-offenders is identified by the public, people attack the offender for retribution. Making public the offender's personal information would result in more hate crime. Also, in 2007, in America, a community manager killed 2 sex offenders living in that community. Since the ex-offenders may want to rebuild themselves, we should offer them opportunities to deal with their issues instead of labeling them and discriminating against them by giving the public access to their personal information. We do recognize a few weaknesses in the current policy, so we propose our counterplan to fix the current system. First, raise the reporting rate. Second, work with charity organizations. My partner will detail our counterplan in the second speech. With our counterplan, sex offenders get a chance to rebuild their self-esteem, and thus would have a more courage to move on. To sum up, making public system only provides a false sense of security. Now I'm ready for cross-examination. Thank you.
First, affirmative cross-examine first name 2 minutes.
Okay, first I want to make sure you just mentioned that the recidivism rate is low in your constructive speech. Okay, then also I want to ask that in our constructive speech, we just mentioned that we are just decreasing all kind of sex crimes, not just the recidivism rates. So what's your point of keep?
Our topic is to make the sex offenders' personal information public.
Yeah, of course.
So they have
The goal is to maintain public safety, right?
But it's for the second.
No, it didn't say that. It's maintain public safety. Do you agree with that?
No.
Okay. You just also mentioned in your constructive speech, like 2 offenders being killed.
Yes.
So can you have more evidence that how many of offenders being killed?
There are many cases in the U.S. and while in South Africa, they didn't make public, but they are also being attacked.
Oh, so they also being attacked if they didn't make public.
Yes.
So it means that they're being killed is not because of.
No, that means that if they are found, they are sex offenders.
So it's nothing to do with personal information.
But if you make public their personal information, it means to raise the public awareness.
Yes, of course. Then I'd like to ask again how many cases in America that have been killed every year? Just 2 of it.
Also, a study in North Carolina that they have the bias against.
Bias.
The hate crimes against the sex offenders.
Second, affirmative in practice 4 minutes.
Good afternoon. First, use the negative to say that in the cross-examine, you say that our topic is that the Taiwan government should make public sex offenders' personal information. But you said that it is our main topic, so you didn't talk about the sex crime rates, only the recidivism. But it is a fact. It is a side effect of the notification law, so you can't just leave it alone. And okay. I'd like to announce the benefit of making sex offenders' personal information public. If we publicize their personal details, the resident could be alerted in order to maintain public safety. As a result, to promulgate the registries of sex offenders can preserve the society from being harmed. And here is our contentions. we find a significant decrease of sex crime rates in the country where the notification laws were passed. Take US for example. According to the statistics from Bureau of Justice in 2010, before they made public sex offenders' personal information, there were 556,000 sex crimes in 1993. And after 1994, they passed the notification laws. The sex crime rate has significantly decreased. In 2010, there were 217,000 sex crimes, meaning that it has declined 64% to now. And other countries with the notification law, such as the UK, also share a similar tendency. According to the UK government in 2011, the sex crime rate has decreased about 10% after the notification law was promulgated. And some residents who disagree with the notification law often emphasize that the notification laws can cause damage to sex crimes' mental status, leaving them with the thought that they have no chance to start a new life or search for a new job again. However, in 2010, a study of the effect of making sex offenders' personal information public done by the UK shows that the sex offenders were nervous and anxious at first, but after a span, they considered it as an extension of the original punishment system. The study found that the sex offenders had a positive mental status, which will cause no harm not a problem to the finding a job. And they also contend that make sex offenders' personal information public violates the human rights. However, in 2003, the Supreme Court of the United States issued a statement that the laws are aimed to protect the society from the sex offense. The Sex Offender Registration Act was legislated to establish and create a civil non-punitive regime. The Supreme Court announced, regardless notification to be a decriminalized system, there is no concern of the issue of double jeopardy and violate the constitutional right. And here are some additional programs. Because the notification laws is imperfect, the enactment of the notification laws is not enough, so we add additional programs to them. First of all, I would like to illustrate our GPS monitoring plan. According to the National Institute of Justice 2009, a study of California high-risk sex offenders on parole found that those placed with GPS monitoring has significantly lower recidivism rates. The GPS approach yielded a decrease of 12% in the recidivism rate of sex crime. In addition, since 1996, some states of the US have set up safety zones, which arrange that GPS monitored sex offenders can stay, like home or workplace. The officers will be alerted if a criminal gets out of the specified range. But we also need psychologists to evaluate sex offenders' mental health and control their sexual urge. To conclude, just prove that there are great harms in the status quo, and felt make it public will have a better contribute to the public safety in the current system. Therefore, with the affirmative strongly request that the Taiwan government should make public sex offenders' personal information. And our main goal is to suppress the first sex offense, because there are 90% of them in Taiwan is first sex offense. Thank you.
First negative cross-examine, second affirmative, 2 minutes.
Good afternoon.
Do you recognize the reporting rate of the current system of now?
Taiwan or
Taiwan, the reporting rate
of what? Sex
of the
sex
sex
offender
offenses.
Yes, of course. And we have evidence.
Okay, next question. You have mentioned that the GPS monitors is the GPS.
Yeah.
What is it different with the current system of the ankle monitors?
Yes. It is different from Taiwan. The GPS program is first it uses the temporary system bracelet worn by the sex offenders and receiving the transmissions from satellites and calculate an offender's physical position. And the bracelet is the bracelet of the GPS is taken off by the sex offenders themselves, and the police will be alerted, and which is different from the Taiwan's plan.
Okay.
That
Okay.
if you
Okay.
take it up, you
Thank you.
can.
Thank you.
Okay.
You mentioned that you are going to carry out the psychological counseling, is it right?
Oh yes.
But who is going to be like counselor?
Psychologists
No, I mean who is going to be
the sex offender in
like
the,
every
in the prison.
sex offenders?
No, the psychologist will first see if you need to get psychological counseling.
Okay.
Yes.
So you are going to make public of all the sex offenders?
What do you mean?
Like all kinds of sex offenders. That's who you are going to make public?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Thank you.
Second negative. 4 minutes.
Good morning, good afternoon. The affirmative doesn't know the recidivism rate nowadays in Taiwan. However, the recidivism rate is only 3%. It is insignificant. The affirmative claims that they are going to make public sex offenders' personal information, but they failed to prove that people will not be panicked after making public. Additionally, they cannot expect people to remember all the information on the internet. They do not have a well-developed plan. Chemical castration does not resolve the problem. The main stimulus of sex crimes, sex offenders are driven by aggression rather than strong sexual impulse. Subduing sexual impulse with castration may not be the ultimate solution. And the tracking system deprives the offender's basic human right. April 6, 2014, a parolee who lives in Taoyuan committed a crime while wearing ankle monitor, but ankle monitors cannot remain monitored 24 hours nowadays. Besides the defect of the affirmative's plan, we want to point out the harm of making public. The affirmative said they are going to make public ex-offenders' address, but once the people have the information of sex offenders, there will be a risk of information abuse. After making public, hate crime will absolutely become more serious. Discrimination against ex-sex offenders will cause more harm to the society. Since the United States made public the information, ex-sex offenders are literally isolated by the society, which discourages them from living a decent, normal life, not to mention having the leisure to fix their mistakes, change their behavior, and become a better person. Ministry of Health and Welfare has analyzed the sex offenses in 2013. Within 12,000 cases, they found out that 80% of the sex offenses were committed by someone known to the victim. Moreover, 60% of the victims who are under 16 were sexually assaulted by their acquaintances. Making public cannot solve the problem of sex crime committed by acquaintances. It only produces a false sense of security. The affirmative claims that making public ensures the public safety while people will be more aware of ex-offenders around them. That is based on the assumption that the offenders are strangers. With the statistic we presented above, the solvency of the affirmative's plan is obviously weak. 80% of sex assault cases are committed by someone known to the victim. Furthermore, the reporting rate is as low as 10%. As long as the crimes are not reported, the making public is useless. The inherent cause of such low reporting rate is that with the current official reporting procedure, victims have to repeat describing the tragedy that happened to them over and over again throughout the reporting process. Also, the process of prosecution and court trial takes too long and thus forming a long window period, during which the victims might be attacked again if the offender is not detained. Our plan will raise the reporting rate as well as prevent the second harm. First, raise the reporting rate. Organize a task force with members from the police department, the justice department, social workers, as well as healthcare providers. The purpose of this task force is to simplify the reporting process. They work together during the reporting process so that the victims won't have to run around repeating their tragedy to different departments. It accelerates the efficiency of the investigation. Second, work with charity organizations. Use their resources to provide ex-offenders with appropriate counseling and spiritual guidance. With the affirmative's plan, not only can it not solve the issue, but also cause more hate crime against ex-offenders and cause more public panic. Therefore, we, the negative, strongly insist that Taiwan government should not make public sex offenders' personal information.
Second affirmative. Propaganda. Second negative.
Good afternoon. First, I'd like to ask that you said that the society will get panicked after the notification. But don't you think that making public sex offenders' personal information make the residents alerted in order to protect themselves?
No.
Why? Why don't you think it could be alerted? If you
Because-
know a guy is a sex crime.
If you know in your neighborhood there's a sex offender, you might want to
I
force
think-
him to move or just
Yes,
feel
sir.
unsafety.
No, you won't feel unsafety because you know who is he or she. So we can be alerted. You know, and okay, next question. First, you say that family members, many of them sex offenders is known by the victims, right?
Yes.
In constructive speech.
Yes.
But we still need to make it public that the residents also could be alerted, you agree? Because our main goal of our constructive speech is to
No, but
deter the first
if the
time
offenders
sex
are
offense.
if the offenders are acquaintances, then what is the meaning of making public? You know the offenders.
Yes. No, you know that our program is to decrease, the main program is to decrease the first offense. And if their personal information is made public to the residents, and the residents could be alerted and to getting
I
away
also-
from the sex offender.
I also mentioned the reporting rate is just 10%, so they are not
Oh.
willing to report the case, so making public is useless.
No, the 10%, what is your evidence of 10%?